talking about 7 different benefits that you need to be aware of road mapping.
Basically, continuity of purpose. So ultimately, when you look at it, just taking a bit from the previous definition, the roadmap is going to be just a communication tool, right? It's not something that we would be measuring our success against, or will we be measuring whether our outputs have been accurate or so on. All it does is pretty much inform everyone who is involved, and that might be of different stakeholders within the organization, of how we plan to do a certain thing. Right? So, for example, we might have a vision for a product that we would want to grow in certain markets, or we would have a certain vision of in terms of retaining customers, for example. So these are all high-level goals, right? Like it does not even talk about features at this point. And then from that point onwards, how do we break down that from that level towards the middle levels? Like in terms of perhaps if we take one of those goals in terms of retaining customers, how would we do that? Would it be by resolving a certain maybe a technological issue that is in the platform, or do we perhaps provide a certain solution to a problem? So those are what is being one of those things that will be tackled by roadmaps, right? So that continuation from a goal to the next levels, which is in terms of maybe one of those actions that we will be taking in terms of where we will be looking into, where the problem lies and where we will be targeting our next solutions in. And then from those cases onwards to the next levels, the following levels. Like, for example, at the lowest point is where we might come to, touching in terms of features and so on. So the features are not necessarily something that we would, promise to clients ultimately at much before we are even, design them or even talking about them. It's just that our goals are laid out for a lot of people to see. For example, it can be, the internal sales departments or something that is common in language for a large number of audiences. So that would be one of those advantages. Second, I will also pick one of the other ones, goals for upcoming releases. So this statement, I just want to point out that when we say goals for upcoming releases, we don't really mean the release plan. So moving away from the roadmap is not really a release plan. It's going to be talking in terms of the goals, right? Something much higher. The upcoming releases might be something that might be going on for a couple of quarters or even years to come. But it's just that in terms of we do need tangible benefits from the software that we are going to be releasing. At the same time, we want to keep that at a much higher level, right? In terms of maybe achieving faster performance in our platform, making the perhaps how do we do that in terms of real-time updates and so on. So this basically roadmaps would allow us to have the uncertainty available in the communication tool itself, while at the same time allowing us to tell the large problems or the big problems we will be tackling as we go on, so that people do see the benefits that they will be getting over time. Right. Moving ahead, one more area, stakeholder collaboration. Right. So let me put this thought into your head. Right. Let's say that in one of our roadmaps, we somehow, maybe it was a good roadmap or it wasn't, we let in a feature be represented in one of those roadmaps. Now, for example, I'm going to bring it out and say that we will be implementing, the social network logins into our platforms in Q2 of 2021, right? So we are pretty fast approaching Q2. And now, for example, to the sales team, it might seem like it's a promise of a feature that they could market to customers and bring in sales. And so that would be one of their, thoughts or one of their understandings, right? And to the engineering team, it would mean that it's one of those areas that they should be next targeting into. They should be making their capacity available. They should be, gearing up their people in terms of understanding those areas and designing and so on. to like, let's say, to a completely different group of people, like maybe the management and so on, the social logins don't really mean something valuable to them, but maybe they are looking into in terms of growing their markets and seeing what are the areas which could, you know, we could capitalize by having this feature. So as you can see in those areas, different things mean this. The same information in the roadmap means quite different things to different people, right? And what we want to do instead is to have like a common language, to have roadmaps be a common place where people could come in and identify their various needs and also gear it up accordingly, right? So the example that I gave you was quite seemed like quite a big mess because we might have gone and made it look like a promise. So those are one of those areas we will be tackling as we move on. But as you can see, the roadmap, what I want to basically point out is that it could mean different things based on who is viewing this. So understanding that audience and also providing that good picture and somewhat accurate, but at the same time having that allowance for uncertainty to creep in, and also uncertainties, to have that opportunities that can be picked up as well. So all of those considered is what stakeholder collaboration is. Following that, the prioritization aspect, right? So we might be proposing high-level timelines from time to time, right? So we might have various goals that might come into play. We might want to, perhaps even tap into different markets. So we might want to, focus on features or maybe even, larger groups of initiatives which help us move towards those goals, right? On the other side, let's say we are a smaller company or a smaller business, and we are getting quite a large, customer who is coming our way. In which case, it might be that we would have to focus our efforts more towards those initiatives, which will help us, tap into that new opportunity that has risen up from the environment that we are getting, right? So in those cases, prioritization differs. We now know what our goals are, what the strategic goals are, what are initiatives that we had planned out for at the moment, and also helps as a point for us to go in and see, hey, these are our list of priorities, and now we do have a new opportunity, and where does this one fit in, right? So it kind of helps us in that way to prioritize and gives us that quick picture so that we can make quicker decisions with the help of these a well updated and a well maintained roadmap.
What we are saying here is, right, so there are many use cases, many reasons why you should start adapting and investing on roadmaps, right? So these are some of the reasons. So, as you see, a few other reasons, right? So if you even in terms of budget acquisition, right? Because let's look at it this way, right? Now, let's assume you are trying to do a research work, and you know that it's going to be a costly deal, whereas you're going to even recruit a trainer and a coach, even a consultant, right, to do the research work for the product feature that you're thinking of. Now, this may involve a lot of cost, right? And in terms of training, upskilling the team, recruiting people, all that involves a lot of costing. Generally, at the product level, we lack the kind of attention we pay on the budget perspective, right? So as a product owner, you can use the product roadmaps to do that budget acquisition related discussion, right? In terms of planning the budgets around the features and the capabilities that we are trying to release in the coming months. So use that opportunity, use the roadmaps as an opportunity to bring up those discussions. Then you can actually come up with a plan in line with your budgetary allocations, right? So this is a big thing. I know this because there are, particularly when you are a product owner, product manager, working for a product company, right? So this is a big issue that you have to tackle, right? Sometimes what happens is you finalize certain features, but you realize that you don't have sufficient budget to carry out the plans. So your budget acquisition related discussions should come into the roadmap level discussions, right? Then finalize your priorities for the next few months. Yeah. So the next thing is the portfolio management. Now we are gonna introduce you something called planning onion, which is a must-know strategy for any agile organization, any agile team, any project product owner, so that you are able to plan at multiple levels. So one level of planning is the portfolio management, right? So what it talks about is, right, so you may have a product that cater to multiple portfolios, right? So how do you plan for multiple portfolios, right? So example, if you want to look at geographically and say, hey, I want to cater to the APAC region geo first, and then this is how these are the things that we need to do, right? At the same time, what if you want to handle the European market, right? European segment, then you can do portfolio for them. So that's one way of thinking. Another portfolio would be mid-range, low to mid-range features, right? Particularly when you look at a product, right? So you need to look at the market interest as well as their monetary levels. So certain features might not sell for all the regions at the same time, at the same level, right? So you might have to plan accordingly. So you come up with your portfolios, right, based on whatever the classification you have, and then you try to plan your roadmaps for each of these portfolios, right? So if you don't have a portfolio roadmap, if you don't look at the portfolios, it will be an utter mess. You're going to do everything together and you might not do the right thing. Yeah. All in all,
Niro, in terms of 90 days planning, is
yes,
this linking with sprint?
absolutely. Yeah. So what you're asking is, how do you link that with the sprints,
Yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the road mapping. So remember, roadmap is a high level agreement that you're going to do with your stakeholders as well as with your team, right? So you're going to go to the stakeholders and discuss their priorities, prioritize the top valuable investments, priorities that we need to work on according to them. And then we kind of say, yes, it's possible. Go back to the team, have that discussion, have a high level agreement, right? Now, this is your input for your release planning and sprint planning. So there are two more levels that you need to go through from that roadmap level planning, Sunet. Yeah. So this is 90 day because this is a proven time span that psychologists suggest that the maximum time window that you need to plan is 3 months, personally or professionally, right? Organizationally. Because see, the more you consider, more high level you get at, right? So think of yourself, right? So if you look at the entire year and try to plan the things that you want to achieve in the next 12 months, it will be a nice plan for sure, but you're not going to hit them, any of them or most of them. Why? Because it's too abstract, right? So you break down yearly plan into a 90-day plan. So this is more granular enough so that you can start picking them up. You have to connect your 90-day roadmap with your release plans. The releases will be few weeks long in agile world, right? The production releases. So you can think of the next 1 month or two weeks time and do a release plan. And that release plan will link back to the 90-day roadmap plan. So that's another comment from Yogita. Yeah, roadmap is useful for management and stakeholders. Absolutely. This is more useful for the colleagues, the professionals who are working in the middle management layer, right? Slash higher management layer. Now, when I say, see, in an agile world, we try to limit the levels, right? It's kind of a flat structure that propose. So in that case, if you are a Scrum Master, if you are a business analyst, if you are a product lead, if you are a Scrum Master, if you are an Agile coach, you are potentially the right person to do that discussion. It doesn't mean others can't get into the roadmap level, but it might not be so relevant for them, right? Example, a developer trying to go into that discussion at the strategic level might not be appropriate because it might be waste of developers' time. It might not be giving the right value. Also, it might not help the person to be productive in such discussions, right? So it's important that you loop the right people into such discussions. How do we tackle uncertainty is the question. We already discussed in the traditional world, we try to seal our plans. In the Agile world, we are not trying to seal it.
Uncertainty is one of those things that are bound to come up by definition and by nature, right? So I guess there are two camps which we can easily jump into. One is to say that uncertainty is going to rise up and change is inevitable. Hence, do not plan, just tackle things as they come up, right? So that's one extreme side of things. And the other extreme is where we completely ignore that there's going to be an uncertainty, right? And we just take in the information that we have at this point and come up with some kind of scientific or mathematical way in which we can predict as much as we can of those uncertainty and create them into data and put it into our plans and then plan things forward, right? So that's one of those two camps which we can do. And in the middle of that, there are various levels of, it's kind of like a spectrum, I would say, right? But right in the middle of that is where Agile sits. Agile, that mindset, that whole flipping of the whole traditional sense of thinking, and all these, if you get rid of those misunderstandings that are surrounding Agile and, just get the right essence of it, that's where I think we get that best potential of coming up with things, right? So that's where the whole activity of planning becomes really valuable. Planning lets us come up with all these, various points of where uncertainty can be introduced, and we can maybe, keep an eye out for them, yes. But at the same time, that whole planning cycle itself is quite useful in that sense. Right? Secondly, laying this out and also making sure that our roadmaps are quite high level and also at a strategic level, we are able to absorb those uncertainties when they occur, right? So, for example, at the strategic level, let's say one of those examples that Niro took in was that we plan to, venture into the, European or the Asian markets. In those cases, whatever smaller changes that come into day-to-day operations, we can try and minimize those at the higher levels by having those kinds of abstract or like high-level goals, right? We could still move into those goals, and the operational activities can be changed little by little at as and when uncertainties in those operational activities occur. But still, all of them can be absorbed as we step to the levels above. For example, let's say our features that we are working to get customers in those region, maybe those might not be going according to our plan. But as we go on, we start, bringing that cycle of adaptation and, inspecting what has gone wrong. And then we can pretty much fit in and tweak our methods and go forward, right? So that is the level of flexibility that is achieved in, Agile and that mindset that we adopt. And as we go to the next level, let's say ethics or even maybe the level above initiatives, we are still achieving those initiatives by trying out these, the lower levels. So that's where, again, 90-day plan will still be, achieved through those things. All the while, we might be making changes to our scope, but yes, but not at the expense of, the time or the changes in terms of the resourcing. As we go the levels further and further, that uncertainty is all absorbed within it. Is my take on it, basically.
So when you're road mapping, what you're trying to do is not to type features into your roadmap. Remember that, right? What you're trying to do is to make it a goal-oriented roadmap. Remember that, the term goal-oriented roadmap. So most of the time, the mistake we do is we tie features into our roadmap and say, hey, we want to achieve, deliver these features by this date. That's a way of asking for failure, right? Asking to fail, because the moment you are trying to predict such a long, time consuming feature, you're not going to be accurate, right? But if you establish measurable, timely goals, right, that is something you can try and achieve. Now, in this approach, we are also now, see, these information are not being centralized anywhere, and we are probably trying to create some tacit knowledge here, purely experience based knowledge that you have never heard of here. Make your roadmaps goal specific, goal oriented, and use objectives and key results to do your road mapping. Now, so this is another whole topic, objectives and key results. Just experiment around objectives and key results. Use objectives and key results to craft your roadmap goals, right? So your roadmap is developed around set of goals that you want to achieve in a given time box. So this is how you're going to tackle your uncertainty, because then you are not trying to fix your plan, right? You are in fact not having a plan, right? It's just a way of looking at the future, next few weeks, months to come, and then trying to forecast what you can achieve as an organization. That is where the road mapping comes in. So everything else is evolving, right? It's how you evolve throughout that time window. Yeah. So that's how you tackle the uncertainty in road mapping.
Just
so
to
sorry,
add
yes,
on
Sushma.
to that, Niro. So one of these observations that I've seen is that to kind of tackle that uncertainty, what tends to happen is that people tend to have this kind of a caveat at the bottom of the roadmap that says something in the lines of the roadmap is intended for a high level timeline, but do not take these as commitments, and it talks a little bit about agile methodology and so on. But never have I come across a customer who was so happy when we said that, and who was quite agreeing when we said that we can't deliver this feature. Right? Ultimately, they have all refused, and it has it tends to kind of go out of hand from time to time. So that is one of those those areas where we tend to think that something like that could help us, but while we are missing out on the 90% of the basically taking it up a level up to several levels and not promising features as such.
Agree. I think it's a great point, Sushman, right? So generally, what we tend to do organizationally is that we try to estimate the features to be delivered, right? We actually want to reverse that approach. We time box the delivery, right? And try to adjust the scope. So this is the only way you can operate as an agile team. This is the only way you can be successful. And if you don't implement this, Sushma and everyone else, you are going to fail, because see, there's no way you can look at the feature end to end and give a timeline, right? Because you don't have sufficient information at the roadmap level, right? You have not done a requirement spec going through each and every use cases that the users are expecting. So how can you predict your timeline and say this is the timeline that we are going to deliver this, right? It's impossible. These are just guesstimates, which will never be a possibility most of the time. So this is where we suggest you reverse the process, right? You need to be influential in these discussions with your stakeholders and clients. Then you approach it this way, right? You say, hey, let's look at the next 3 months, next 90 days. Let's look at the goals that we want to achieve. So you tell us the goals that you want to achieve through our development team, right? Then you listen to them, you articulate the goals as you have the discussion, convert them into the objectives and key results, then work further, right? So I think this solves the problem, Sushman, right? But I agree, it's not an easy discussion in most of the cases, but it's a discussion that we need to have if you really want to be agile. Otherwise, it's very possible that you can create a plan, call it a roadmap. Everyone expecting this to be sealed, and that's not gonna work in an agile setting. If you are trying to be Scrum, if you are trying to be Kanban teams, I assure the traditional approach will never work because you don't do sufficient planning to be traditional, right? If you want to be traditional, you can be. Then you have to approach it in a totally different way. Then road mapping won't come into play, right? Then what comes is what I mentioned earlier, right? So you have a project charter, then you have a detailed work breakdown structure. That work breakdown structure will lay the detailed comprehensive plan for the entire project time window. Yeah. So this is basically the difference. Now, one of the things that you need to understand is that your product backlog is just like a satellite navigation. What I mean by this is this, right? When you're driving, let's assume this, right? You are in your car, you are driving to a place that you never know, that you have never traveled to. So you switch on the satellite navigation. So you give the direct destination, start following the directions. It is basically telling you the next immediate move. It will not tell you what your complete journey looks like. What are the turns that you have to take, few steps ahead? What are the breaks that you have to take? No, it's not going to tell you. Only thing that it does is it will tell you, hey, take a right turn after 100 meters. Then go straight for another 2 kilometers, right? So that's all what it can tell you because that's how it is programmed to work. Now, this is good, right? It is great to make the next few turns, but there's a problem. How many of you have ended at a road block, dead end like this, right? It has happened to me. It's basically, my family members, including my wife, have she has lost the trust about satellite navigation whenever we travel to a place we don't know, simply because that's how it's programmed to, right? If you don't know your full journey, your full map, you're going to end up at a roadblock like this very easily. So what is the way forward? What can help you is your question. Now, trying to help, this neither works. Will it work? No. This is no help either, right? Why? Because having a lot of satellite navigations won't solve the problem. So this is something like companies are trying to have multiple product backlogs to handle multiple priorities, multiple product features. No, it's not going to solve your problem. So what? What is the next thing to do? What is the way forward? This is where the road mapping can really help your organization, help you personally, when you are the person to lead the roadmap level discussions, product level discussions, right? So you got to get onto road mapping. Roadmap is strategic, whereas the product backlog is tactical. In road mapping, what we are trying to do is establishing goals, product goals, and metrics to achieve. Whereas in the product backlog, we are trying to create epics and stories to be delivered. That's a huge difference here, right? In road mapping, don't think of putting the epics, at least at the stakeholder level road mapping. Talk about the goals. That's where we said, make your roadmaps goal centric. So you are trying to achieve certain goals through your road mapping, right? So at the backlog level, you talk about the epics and stories that you want to deliver in the next few sprints. One more difference to be discussed, right? Uncertainty is higher when it comes to the road mapping. So don't make promises, please, right? If you are trying to make promises to your clients and stakeholders at the roadmap level, you're asking for failures. You're not going to stick to your words. You're not able to deliver your promises. Therefore, what you have to do is high-level predictions that we want to achieve, kind of stretch targets that you want to deliver. right? So stretch targets have to be challenging, but still doable, right? Don't agree on something that you think it's impossible to achieve in the next 3 months, 90 days. On the other hand, product backlog, it's quite certainty that we try to generate through the backlog, right? Things that we create and refine in the backlog level, at the backlog level, are quite certain to deliver. So you can kind of start making commitments to your stakeholders, telling, hey, stakeholders, we are going to release these epics within this time box, right? So ideally from 1 week to 4 weeks time maximum, I would say. Don't consider anything longer than that. That is the time frame we recommend for the iteration sprints as well. Therefore, I will stick to the same time frame, right? So make your predictions, try to be certain in terms of what you're trying to deliver from 1 week to 4 weeks time. Who should be doing the road mapping, right? It's basically the product owner owns the product roadmap and the backlog. Team and stakeholders contribute. That's it. You can't just pinpoint and say, hey, you are the product owner, you have to own the things, right? So yes, high level ownership is delegated to the product owner. It does not mean product owner is solely responsible for the entire product vision and the backlog and the roadmap. So it's a collaborative thing in agile world, but you can say product owner has the high level accountability to own the product roadmap as well as the backlog and manage it, right? So when you say manage, you're going to say, hey, you got to work collaboratively with your team and the stakeholders, right? From there, moving on to the most important thing before we get into Miro. Now, do understand this, right? This is the topmost concept that you need to be aware as product people, as product teams. If you don't get this right, you don't get anything right. So we call it the planning onion. Your planning start at the strategic level, right? Then you go to the portfolio level. Product road mapping is somewhere in middle, not at the top of your planning, right? So you start visionizing your company strategy, then you go into the portfolio, then you narrow down into one specific portfolio. From there, you look at the different products that can serve one given portfolio. From the product, you go to the release level. So this is where you look at the weekly releases, right? Releases that can be achieved in few weeks' time. From weekly releases, you go to the iteration level. That is just 1 week to 4 weeks time window. From iterations, you go to the daily planning. So if you look at any agile team has to invest their time and energy on all these 6 levels of planning. So if you don't do these 6 levels of planning, you are having halfway done strategy, which will not be scalable for you to do the absolute great work as a product team. So what we are going to tell you is how to start at a product vision level, right? So be it the company vision, right? You can use the same format. So you see here, what you see here is a product vision board, right? It's a vision board that we have used to articulate the vision for a product that we are thinking of. The product, as you see here, the first thing that you are doing here is just highlight what the product is all about, right? So think of this, right? Developing a simple, faster learning platform to sell e-learning, training, and coaching programs. So this is something that we are working towards, right? Sooner we should be able to make this available from Scrum meetups in Colombo and Agile Great. So these two organizations are kind of working together to deliver this. Now from there, right, one other thing that you need to talk about. So there are quite a few parameters that you need to look at, right? One, the target audience. So what is the target audience? So we are going to put them down here. Then needs. What is the need? What are the needs around this particular product? Now the needs are something that the customers are expecting. right? So you need to do your research, customer research, and clarify what specific needs are we trying to resolve, right? So here we have just set some sample needs here, right? So if you look at some of them, so we have said building a sorry. So let me just say. So we have said develop. So we haven't said that here, right? So what we want to do is basically address the needs of professionals who want to learn end-to-end technical and professional courses, right? We don't want to compete with big giants like Udemy, Pluralsight, LinkedIn Learning, etc. But we want to create a niche product, right? A product that addresses certain niche needs, right? Then we are going to talk about the product, right? So what the product is all about, right? Then you're going to talk about the business goals that you are trying to achieve. What are the goals that we want to achieve as a business? Then you talk about the competitors. Who are the competitors, right? So we basically need to list down all the competitors here. Then you need to look at your revenue streams. How are we going to generate revenue? Then the cost factors as well as channels. So we are going to say, hey, what are the channels that we are going to write? So we have said website, and this is not true, right? So in terms of this particular thing, we would say mobile app. Yeah. So we would look at these two channels in this case. We can further look into that. Now from here, the next thing that you need to do, that something that you never do in your organization, is this, right? You look at the value proposition in terms of the product you are working on. So value proposition talks about three different dynamics of the users, right? Number one, customer jobs. These are the basic needs that the users have that they want to fulfill, right? So we need to create, this is where we need to create personas. Look at these personas very specifically. So I look at a persona, something like this. I look at a professional who are struggling to learn through just online recordings, who is wanting to have some interaction during the training. Now, this is something lacking in the market, right? Most of the programs are 100% online recorded learning. So we want to address that. So this is a kind of a basic need, right? So we could say, okay, basic need is delivering an online program, right? So that is what, so let me rephrase this, right? So the basic needs we are considering here, some of them are learning through online platforms. See, this is basic, right? So it's just trying to do the same thing that LinkedIn Learning would have done, something that Udemy is doing, something that any learning platform available on the net is doing. Those are the basic jobs, because if you just deliver them, what you're doing is meeting a basic need that the users have, right? Then we go into the next two set of segments, right? Customer segments. So some customers may have pain points. Now, one pain point is what I just mentioned. Some users are struggling to just go through an online material, learn through those pre-recorded audios. We want to solve that, right? Then we say, hey, one feature that we want to introduce is we introduce interactive sessions during the training. Maybe 25% of the online training program is instructor-led. It's a live session where you actually can interact with the instructor, right? So that's a pain point that we are trying to solve. Then we say gain creators. So maybe these are the things that users want to tackle while they're learning. They're not pain points, they are not problems, they are not basic needs either, but there are certain things that enhance their experience. Example, right? One thing would be if you want to make it single sign-on, right? That's kind of a big infrastructure feature that we need to invest our time and efforts, right? We want to make it single sign-on. So as you log on, right, we don't want you to log off every time you close the window, right? Uh, so maybe we keep the user signed on. So that might not be a pain point. It might be as well. But I would consider that as a gain creator. Another thing is enhancing the user journey. So we want to provide the most smoothest user journey. That's a gain creator than a pain point or a basic need, right? So you look at the value proposition in terms of the product you are developing. Then you conclude these are the features, right? So look at this, right? So this is the next thing that you have to do. So you have to do, so it's one-to-one mapping, right? Your basic needs are here, right? Basic needs are here. These are the things that you have to do without failing. Then you have the gain creators. These are the things that you will fulfill the gains that they are expecting. These are the pain relievers that will relieve their pain points, right? Your product will consist of all these three features, right? Basic jobs, gain creators, and pain points. Now, from there, the next step that you have to do is establish yearly product goals. Look at this, right? Now, this is not something that you would strongly invest their time and energy in developing a product, right? So you need to come up with yearly product goals that you want to achieve. So in this case, this is an OKR, right? Objective and key results. So you have an objective. Also, you have key results that you want to achieve. Look at this, right? Now, why you need to have both, not just objective, is simply to have targets, right? Otherwise, you have a target that's easily not understood. So if you say launch the optimized desktop application to sell online programs, it's good enough, but it's not great. Why? Because see, it doesn't define what you mean by optimization, right? So look at the things that you have put down there, right? So we are talking about 5,000 to 7,000 monthly subscriptions. We talk about launching 5 to 7 online training programs in that 12 months. We talk about launching the personal coaching program online with 25% live sessions as well. So that's a coaching session that I conduct for professionals, right? Then the fifth thing is enables the streaming capability. Now, big key results, but these are the things that we want to achieve, right? So similarly, I will go for the second objective also. So it could be generally 3 to 5 OKRs that you need to establish. You can also go up to 7, 5 to 7. You are pretty much okay to chase that if you feel like these are doable, right? But general recommendation would be sticking around 3 to 5 steady objectives and key results for the year, right? Then the next step, right? What is the next step? The next step is going into the 90-day roadmap. Now, this is very crucial. So what you do is you look at one OKR, right? Then slice it, break down that OKR into multiple capabilities that you want to deliver, right? So I would say goals here as well, right? So you may do this at the initiative / goals. So my definition of initiative is it's a goal, right? Goal roadmap. So you need to ensure that this is basically done at the goal centric way. Okay. So what you do here is divide your 1 year time window that you have considered at the OKR level into 3 time segments, right? Namely short term, mid term, long term, right? So you want to create some level of certainty for your short-term goals. So you want to elaborate the requirements, understand them in a bit detailed way so that it's just enough for you to go and deliver them. When it comes to the midterm, I would consider the next 2 quarters is midterm, right? The first quarter, first 90 days short term for me. The upcoming 2 quarters, like it's like up to how many days? 180 days, right? So the next 180 days is midterm, right? So in that, you also have your goals, product roadmap goals established, but they don't have to be very detailed, right? As detailed as your short-term roadmap goals. Then you go to the long term. That is the last quarter of your year, 12 months. And that can be very, very abstract, right? Why I say this is because otherwise you spend a lot of time trying to finalize the entire set of roadmap goals for the entire year, which is not appropriate because you are going to throw away a lot of these things within that 12 months time, right? But if whatever you agree for the next 90 days are going to stay almost the same, they can change, but they're kind of accommodatable. These changes are somewhat minor as compared to the changes that can happen in the next 12 months, right? So you also can do cross-department planning here. Now, this is another missing thing in your organizations, right? So you need to consider the roadmap planning cross-departmentally, right? It's not just development team who is trying to make magic, making the company a great product company. No, it's impossible. You need to look at all the other departments who are trying to work with you, including marketing and security. I have just, for an example, I have put down this example where when we are working towards finalizing the user journey here, right, it's the UX team who will be working on it. It's part of the development team. Then we are talking about the desktop version 1.1, just delivering the must-have features in the Q2, right? Nothing else. It's just must-have features. In the meantime, we want the marketing team to plan their research on the most competitive features, right? By the time we start developing the version one day, we want them to come to us and say, hey, these are the most demanding features. Then we go ahead with them, right? So there'll be parallel requirement gathering here, epic creation, backlog refinement, so that you understand what marketing is finalizing. So ideally, marketing together with the stakeholders will tell you these are the most important features that we need to deliver in Q2, right? Then you go and try to deliver them. So at the roadmap level, it's a goal that you're trying to achieve. So this goal has to be more detailed. So use OKR for that again, right? It's going to change your game. Don't let that be just a title like this. That doesn't make sense at all, right? You understand what it is, but you don't understand enough. So you have to go into the objective and key results format, right? Drill down to the key results that you're trying to achieve in this. So these key results can later be converted into your epics. So that's the thing that I haven't done here. So your next level of road mapping can happen at the epic level, right? So how so? So you look at one quarterly level roadmap goal, right here, then convert that into the epics. So ideally, this could be few epics to deliver, right? So my definition of this initiative, roadmap initiative, is it's a 90-day long initiative. Then I break it further in the next level, epic level, and then I create 3 epics to achieve this. And I'm going to say, this is how I'm going to release these 3 epics. So that's what create the release planning. And then you go into the sprint level planning. You look at one epic, slice it into the stories, assign it to the team. So this is basically what we wanted to achieve. So we are kind of timely here, right? Except the Q&A. But I would like to open the floor for any questions. We are more than happy to answer any question that you have here. We believe that we have gained sufficient expertise to answer any of your questions. The floor is yours. Anyone with any question? It's your time.
Yeah, Prabhu here.
Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, actually, you're explaining about the customer jobs in the Miro board. That is like value appreciation in that place. So just wanted to have some more explanation on customer jobs. I couldn't understand that. So can you share that Miro board? Yeah. Yeah.
So I can actually so I can share that. Right. Can I just explain it? Then you focus, listen to me. Is that okay?
Fine. Done.
Yeah?
No, yeah,
So,
sure.
so your product will have 3 classifications of requirements: customer jobs, gain creators, pain relievers. Okay. The first one is, so look at this, right? Look at that e-learning example, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if I have to go to the market, there are must-have features.
Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
As a trainer, I should be able to upload my videos, structure them in a particular program, right? I also should be able to structure the exercises, the videos, as well as some activities, right? Also quizzes, right? Now, these are some of the basics that you have to achieve when you develop a product like that. So these are the customer jobs. Nothing fancy, nothing exceptional. These are just basic requirements.
What are the needs need for the customer? So that are the customer jobs, right? So what are the needs for the customer?
Exactly. These are the basic needs. I would say basic needs. Okay. Yeah. These are the basic needs that the customers are expecting from the product.
Right. Thank you.
Got it? Other 2 things are like very specific, like pain points. So you may have a pain point, right? Got it?
Right. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for the question, Prabhu. Appreciate it. Can you just come up with one word to explain your experience above the last 1 hour and 42 minutes so far? Tell us what was your experience here quickly, right? Let's do a round robin. Maybe Rakita, you want to start? What's the single word that you can use to explain your experience here?
Informative. I was about to say the same thing. It is very informative and it's good information.